Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, man. Another big one today, College Baseball World Series. You've been watching it. Everybody is an umpire. That's a new show we're going to start. Everybody is an umpire. Frank Duffy's going to check in with us live from up in Omaha, Nebraska, and talk about that. Man, that was a tough one last night. Wake Forest 3, LSU 2. You were playing at such an elite level now. Wake Forest and LSU, two just great teams. Florida, leader in the clubhouse. They've got 2 wins. They're going to have 2 chances to win one game to put them in the championship series if they play it right. So this is College World Series. 8 teams. 2 have already gone home. Sadly, Virginia, they double dribbled their way back to Charlottesville, and Stanford. They've gone back to raise money at the local grocery store parking lots, pushing the Girl Scouts out of the way for Girl Scout cookie sales to try to get some money for some new stadium lights. But we'll be joined in the second segment by Mike Gittens, the AU War Report, broadcasting live from the banks of the Chattahoochee, where they now have Class 4 and even a Class 5 rapid. It's unbelievable. Downtown Chattahoochee, if you hadn't been, unbelievable. They blew the dam out about 11 years ago. Chattahoochee, both sides, Columbus and Phoenix City, have great hotels, restaurants. And by the way, the Chili Thai restaurant in downtown Columbus by the river might be the best Thai restaurant I've ever been to. It is so damn good. Hour number 2, we will be joined by Tyler McComas, checks in. Boomer Sooner out in Oklahoma City. Norman, he'll be talking with us about Oklahoma. And boy, did they get the split end of the stick when it came to the 2024 schedule. Welcome to the SEC, Oklahoma in 2024. Pow! Thank you, sir. May I have another? Bam! Thank you, may I have another. But, hey, they wanted to be in this league, and I'm glad we got them. And I can assure you, Frank, you and I both have grown up. OU football is pretty damn important in that state, like Oklahoma State is. They will – that learning curve ain't going to be that long. I think it's going to be fairly short. They're going to recruit different kind of players. And in the fourth segment, May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport. Since 1964, 2 locations, open every day, pet pickup and drop off, Sundays 3 to 5 at Camp May, daycare, dog care, cat care, connecting cat condos. They cover it all. Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, will check in with us. 6 days a week, 25 shows a month, 50 hours, at least a month of content. We do it. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. Dollar goes a long way. And remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can look at Frank, me, and all of our cast of characters, man. It's like the Hollywood Squares a lot of times, man. Boy, wouldn't you love to have a comedian on late night TV that was funny, that wasn't all political, like, say, Jonathan Winters? Boy, would we? Jonathan, can you imagine Jonathan Winters on Sidelines with Frank Duffy at about beer 30? But anyway, we got a lot to cover. And
Frank, you mean, and by the way, you mean Jello shot 30?
Yes, Jello shot. That is. Hey, now look, can I read to you what you sent last night? Well, just tell everybody what happened when Raising Cane's founder went into Rocco's bar. And I got to know more about how big is this bar or whatever, but that's a cool story, Frank, and only you can tell it.
Well, and I will admit right up front, I did have a very up close and personal look at the entire goings on, much to my
shenanigans.
Yeah. Hey, look, those 21,000 Jello shots do not eat themselves. There are people there that are actually having to do that, right? So anyway, well, first of all, hello, everybody from beautiful Omaha, just the friendliest people in the world. We love Omaha. Omaha loves LSU. And, yes, it was a tough night for the Tigers, and it was a tough night for Omaha. Omaha does not want to see us going home, I assure you. You know, their wallets were weeping gently when Wake Forest came back and got that third run. They're like, no.
Yeah.
Please. In fact, I was walking back to the Hilton and where my car was valeted, and I gave the attendant my card. He goes, please don't tell me y'all lost. I said, yeah, we lost 3-2. He goes, oh no. He goes, I'm on all weekend. I need y'all to stay.
Well,
But anyway,
that hurt, man. I mean, you know, we're the SEC, and that guy from Wake Forest, Josh Graham, we had on was fantastic. No, we're biased, but man, that game and the crowds, Frank, the atmosphere,
yeah, it was incredible.
I love it.
I was enjoying being in there. I probably had the worst seats I've had in 30 years of watching LSU baseball. It was way out in the outfield, but I didn't care. I'd have crawled in there on broken glass to be in for that game. That was the excitement of it. And look, the day started really early. I actually went to the Tennessee-Stanford game. I was in there for it. It was in fact, there were a lot of LSU people in there. And look, I was cheering for Tennessee because they're a fellow SEC mate. But honestly, I really didn't want to see them. I hate that we're going to have to play them tonight. Their pitching staff is a lot deeper than ours. And that when you get to game 9, 10, 11, and 12, it's all about the pitching and how deep you go. And Tennessee just deeper than us. But it was a great game. You know, Stanford went out to a 4-0 lead. But you could kind of sense that Tennessee was not panicking. You know, they have the bats to get back into it. And then, you know, the poor kid, Montgomery, when he was out there throwing, you know, you had the 156 pitches he had to get him here. And then I think he was up to about 75 or 80 when they finally pulled him. You know, Tennessee, you could just see he had nothing left in his arm. In fact, I knew it the inning before. If you were watching it, he turned to do a pickoff move at second. He could barely get the ball to the second baseman who was standing on second base. I mean, his arm was that shot. You could literally see it then. I'm shocked Stanford's staff left him in there. Well, of course, he got shells. Tennessee went ahead, and that was all she wrote. Then we took a break. I had to go charge my phone and get some air conditioning. It was hot. It was SEC.
Yeah, how hot it looks. Hot. It looks really hot.
It was hot.
People don't. Yeah, because I mean, where we go pheasant hunting in Chamberlain, South Dakota, on the Missouri River. I watch the Weather Channel like you do in Fox Weather. It'll be 114 degrees up there in the summer sometimes. Then I think about up there in late October, early November when we've had 2 feet of snow, just bam on top of us. That's the land of the extreme. Weren't there a lot of dinosaurs out there?
Yeah, well, in South Dakota, absolutely. Yeah, we've been digging them up all the time. But here's the funny thing. So I was actually talking to a business about Tiger Air, our air-conditioned football helmets, because we're making a push here. We're making a push here in Omaha to try and get all 16 high schools with the LSU equipment before we leave town. Now, I was kind of hoping to be around for the weekend. It might be a little difficult now. We got to win 3 games to get there. But I was telling them, I was like, look, you know, I'm impressed with y'all as a boy from New Orleans and as somebody that went to school at LSU. I said, y'all's heat is impressive here. I got to tell you now, it's a little drier than what we're used to, but it's impressive. But no, so you know, we watched the first game. A lot of LSU people were in there. Walked back to the Hilton, had to recharge my phone because nowadays your tickets are on your phone. You're in deep trouble if you're down to a sliver of a bar of battery, right? So it's a must. Yeah. You got to have that thing charged up, right? I didn't want to miss the big game between number 1 and number 5, and because my ticket was not showable. But we came back over to Rocco's. Now Rocco's is a really cool bar that's right at catty corner. My favorite bars here are Rocco's and the Blatt. The Blatt is kind of where old Rosenblatt, it's named after Rosenblatt, and it's a cool place. 3 levels, rooftop bar. But Rocco's across the street is one of the most brilliant marketing coups since they started putting water in plastic bottles and charging $2 for it. Great marketing. Is that Rocco's came up with this shot contest, I guess, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, something along those lines. And so what they do is they've got a big whiteboard and they put all 8 schools that are in the College World Series. And if you go in and you buy a shot, you get to let them know which school you want it to be tallied to. Well, last year, Ole Miss put up a record 18,000 some odd for Jello shots. Took them all week and a half, all the way through the finals to get it. Well, if you were consulting your local wagering attendant, the local bookies had LSU minus 485 to break the record within their third game. Well, that got shattered yesterday as LSU, our total, and by the way, I single-handedly, me and my friends pushed us from 4,000 to 5,000 somewhere around Saturday afternoon. I kind of lost count at the pregame to the Tennessee game, right? God. In fact, we were having so much fun. We were buying them for our Tennessee brethren. But
there you go.
So yesterday, about an hour and a half before game time, in walked Todd Graves, who is the owner of Raising Cane's. Huge LSU fan. Walked in. And look, I didn't see the cash go down on the barrelhead. And I would hope that the folks at Rocco's gave him a discount based upon volume purchased. But at $5 a shot, he slapped down $30,000 on the bar and said, I want 6,000 shots for all my LSU brothers. And that thing went down. And when I tell you, it was clearly planned in advance, because they had them things stacked on trays, and it looked like the scene from, what was it, Beauty and the Beast, when all the waiters are walking out, when they've got the big restaurant scene and they're walking out with all the trays full of stuff. Dude, there were more shots. So I'm sitting there with Ben McDonald. I sent y'all the picture of me and Ben McDonald got kind of propped up together. I said, have you ever seen anything like this? He goes, this is crazy. This is hell. So, yes, LSU now. LSU is now the proud owner of the shot record. Just like when Playboy came out in the 80s and ranked the 20 party schools, and we at the fraternity house at the Kappa Sig house was looking through Playboy, because we were doing it for the articles. We were looking through Playboy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were looking at Playboy and we didn't see our name. We were like, where are we? We're not on the 20 top. And if you looked way down in small print, there was an asterisk that said, we cannot rank amateurs with professionals, or LSU would be at the top of this list. So they threw us a curveball. Well, same thing with here. We knew we were going to take it, but I will tell you, and look, we still got a shot. It's a long haul when you come out of the losers bracket and you're short on pitching. We got to beat Tennessee tonight. And what did I joke with you and Rob, you and Doug and Maury when I said it last night? I said, if you beat Tennessee tonight, meaning tomorrow night, tonight, I go, first prize, you get to go play Wake Forest again and have to win 2 in a row. Second prize, you get a set of steak knives and you got to drive all the way back to Baton Rouge. That's what second place is tonight. So, man, we're gonna have our hands full.
Okay, you beat Tennessee tonight. Yep. You got to then beat Wake Forest 2 times in a row. And then we know, and Franz Beard was on yesterday. We talked a lot about Florida. They're rolling right now. Of course, they've had 2 ninth inning dramas. They call them, Franz calls them these heart attack type finishes. Yeah. But man, Tennessee, I will say this, Tennessee's pitching is what really stands out. We talked with, Vince Ferrara from Knoxville yesterday, who's on the UT Vol Baseball Network. And I go back every time because it makes sense. They play 14 innings at Clemson, win that regional. They go 14 innings in that game with Clemson. They put 3 pitchers out there. Clemson goes through 10.
Why I'm concerned. That's why I'm concerned tonight, because I know how good their pitching is. Their pitching is far deeper than our pitching. Our route to this, which I really thought we had a really good chance. We had to go 2-0. Then we get the time off, have Skeens come back to get us into the finals. Yeah. I mean, that would have been that was the approach to take to kind of shelter our weak and shallow pitching. And then you say, look, if we get into the finals, we got 2 out of 3, and if we just win 1, then Skeens can come back and maybe pitch 3 or 4 innings on Monday night, right, as his third appearance. That was the thing. Now to come back and have to win 3 games just to get into the final, and to do it against a Tennessee squad where their strength is third and fourth games of these tournaments, because they go much deeper. Another problem LSU's had. I mean, I got here to Panera Coffee from Panera Bread for my coffee this morning, and I picked up the milk carton to pour it in my coffee. And I was afraid I was going to see Dylan Cruz's picture on the milk carton that he was missing, because the SEC Player of the Year. I mean, I've been watching LSU baseball since I was young, and I've never seen a better hitter go into a tournament with so much potential, with so much momentum, and then have as slow of a start. I mean, it's mind blowing. Now we've had great production from Trey Morgan. When he got that double in the 8th inning, we got the error which got us at first and third, no outs. We would have been able to take the lead, and where I was sitting, like I said, that was the worst seats I've had in 30 years of watching LSU baseball. I was way down the line in the upper deck on the side down the lines, but where I was exactly where the third baseman from Wake Forest got pulled to make that throw. So I literally was looking. Yeah. I was running an intersection from where I was looking through the third baseman right to home plate. When I tell you that kid had a 1 out of 10 shot to get that throw to that catcher to place that tag, and he made it. And you got to tip your cap. That was a hell of a play. That run scored. You're now down to first and second with no outs with a one run score. Might be totally different. But if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. You can't bellyache about the umpiring. You can't bellyache about not scoring. Look, when LSU only scores 2 runs because of our pitching and our bullpen that's had its issues with a lot of injuries, you can't expect to win a ball game. In fact, you can't. If you'd have told me LSU scored 2 runs, I would have told you we weren't going to lose the ball game. We would have been lucky to be in it. You've got to get the bats going to take care of this less than perfect pitching. And I say less than perfect because when you got Paul Skeens, you can't say you got a bad staff. You just don't have a deep staff. And that's our issue right now. And the last team that I want to meet deep into a series when I've got my third pitcher going is the Vols of Tennessee. That it's gonna be a big. I mean, look, I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm here till the cows come home. I'll be in there. You can hear my voice as hoarse as it is. If I was hollering against the Wake Forest, and by the way, I must have jumped up about 7 times, and there are some words that are probably still hovering in the ether over Schwab Stadium on that umpire. But let me tell you, we're going to stay in it. We're here for the long haul, but it's going to be an uphill battle to beat Tennessee, and then to try and take, if we get out of tonight, to take 2 from Wake Forest. Wake Forest is a very talented team, but we had them on the ropes. So we get Skeens back, we'll at least win. I think we'll win one of Wake Forest, and then you take your chances. Can't hear you.
We go. Sorry about that.
Now you're on. Sorry.
I had, man, it was one of those mosquitoes stepped on the mute button. Sorry, they're big over there. We went to war with them last night. These country mosquitoes in Arkansas, they pay taxes. They're mean. But let's go back to the pitching. It's a lot like football. I'm going to make an analogy. LSU, the defense isn't great, but the offense is so good with the run production that you don't want to get in that kind of situation because your quarterback plays every week. It's a 7-day cycle. And you want to have 4 quarterbacks in the quarterback room. Pitching wise, that's been the scouting report on LSU all year long. Even when you were number 1, everybody has flaws. And this is the thing about Tennessee. Tony Vitello, ferocious competitor. Not that Johnson's not, but their pitching staff, damn, they're an elite pitching staff.
Our weakness is their strength.
Yes.
And that puts you at a disadvantage in a one or done situation.
Yeah, and that's what, and you can't play. I can sense it right now, and I can sense it from you. You know, you're going, damn, we've got to win this game, and then you got to you got to win 3 games just to get. You got to win today against Tennessee, then you got to play Wake Forest twice. So look, but pressure. This is what these guys. It's not pressure to them. Like one of the LSU players said, pressure is, you know, you're a heart surgeon or you're a neurosurgeon, and you're opening up somebody and putting their heart over, you know, that's but they don't look at it as pressure because they do it every day. Correct. That's what the LSU baseball players. Let me ask you now about the crowds. LSU, like Ole Miss last year, took over Omaha. This year it's LSU. When you're at these games against Wake Forest last night, you know, Josh Graham talked about it. It's a small school. It's the smallest Power 5 school, Wake Forest is. What was the crowd like? I mean, I was watching it on TV, but I had to drive back from Memphis and listen to it on the Sirius XM, and it wasn't the LSU broadcast. And it sounded like a lot of people were cheering for Wake Forest too. I guess that's the underdog fan.
Yeah. Honestly,
they're not really an underdog.
No, the number 1 team in the nation. Honest to
exactly.
goodness,
but with y'all's crowd, I meant.
Yeah. Honest to goodness, I didn't even know they were there until the 8th inning. To be honest with you. LSU was raucous. We were loud the whole night. Look, anytime we are here, we take over. That's why Omaha loves us. That's why there were people that were waiters and bartenders, you know, saying novenas last night and weeping gently into the night air, right? And
I love that.
Loss. But I will say, I walked down from the upper deck because that was my form of a rally cap. I had to kind of shake things up. So I went down to the first level to look behind, you know, the standing room area for the 8th and 9th inning. And when I was down there, when I happened to be passing the Wake Forest section, if you will, they were kind of down by the third base line, down low. Not many of them, but when they scored that run, when that CNI single went through and they put that run up, they were hooting and hollering. And look, I love that. I love school spirit. I love the fact. Yeah. Hey, I'm happy when the ACC, you know, channels enter SEC. I take that as a compliment. But honestly, you know, it's just a different mindset when LSU comes. And by the way, you know, a lot of the cheering that was going on was Florida fans for Wake Forest. I saw a lot of them. You know where? Hey, look. Yeah. When I was in there with Tennessee yesterday, I was telling all my Tennessee friends, and you saw all my Auburn buddies that I was sitting with. I took the 2 pictures of all Auburn guys I was sitting with. The Tennessee fans, I said, look, I'm cheering for y'all because you're a fellow SEC school. I'm cheering for you, but I really don't want to see you. The next time I really want to see you is when we get back on the football schedule.
You were upfront about that.
Yeah, I don't want to see you. But I'm cheering for you. Florida, man, I'm telling you, they're a different beast. I don't know if it's all the Yankees that come down and populate that school, but Florida does not have the SEC loyalty that almost all of our other schools do. It's like a one-off, and they were openly cheering for Wake Forest. They did not want us to have the easy pass that they did. Or at least the ones that I saw.
Remember,
at least the ones that were around me, about 3 pockets of them. They were standing and, you know,
but you know, Buddy Martin and Franz Beard, I mean, they're like we are now, you know, and they can't speak for all the Florida fans, but no. I'll tell you, remember that debate was brought up on it was brought up on this show when Auburn and Alabama and Houston and Iowa were in that Birmingham regional there in back in the March Madness. Would the Alabama fans be pulling for Houston against Auburn? And I mean, look, there's always going to be some that do it
50-50, but most of us.
Yeah. And I'm going to pull for the conference. I'm just one of these guys that, man, and not that I travel more than anybody else, but I have traveled a lot all over the country in different places. When you get on the road, and especially if you're up east and these Big Ten people are talking smack about the SEC doesn't have any academic standards and they're just a bunch of yahoos and idiots. I mean, I will stand up for any school in the conference because I am first and foremost a Southerner.
Can I tell you, Rob, you'd love this story. So our first national championship that I witnessed in 2003 in the Superdome, I was born a couple of years too late for LSU's first national championship, '58. Or I guarantee you, I'd have crawled.
Do you know who the coach was in 1958 for LSU?
Paul Dietzel.
It's
Paul
okay.
Dietzel.
All right.
Paul Dietzel.
I
But anyway,
trivia.
and by the way, one of the youngest coaches to win a national championship, Paul Dietzel. And then for some unknown reason went to South Carolina and Army, but it could have had a Saban-like dynasty actually in the 60s and 70s. But here's the thing, because of his youth. So here's the thing. So when we were in playing Oklahoma in the Superdome for our national championship, when we finally got that last big sack and we knew we had it, Saban was on the sideline, Marcus Spears, Marquise Hill, just had an incredible team. Corey Webster, our D-backs. When they were all starting now to celebrate, you know the chant that went up in that Superdome? It was not LSU. And you know how proud we are of our school. It was SEC. SEC.
Oh, yes.
That was the chant that went up when we knew we had it. And that's telling. That is very telling.
Yeah. Now, Frank, I totally agree with that because we are Southerners. We're proud of it. Look, for a long time, man, we were the gum on the bottom of the rest of America's shoes until we got college football ginning. Yeah, the Rose Bowl in 1926, but remember Iron Mike Donahue, the little Irishman who spoke Gaelic, won 3 national championships at Auburn. Look, we're going to bring in Mike G from the Bi-Cities, Columbus, Phoenix City, Mike G, the Auburn War Report. And Alabama loves, we talk about that Rose Bowl. That was big, but Iron Mike Donahue, obviously, Mike, you and I and Frank were not around then, but he spoke Gaelic, barely spoke English. And when he left Auburn, he was there 1904 to 1922. He took off the 21 season, came back in 22. He left. That's the last Auburn coach to leave to take another job. He went to LSU. They raised his salary, gentlemen. You ready for this? From $5,000 to $10,000 a year. Wow. Oh, you know what they did at LSU? He didn't have a lot of success at LSU, Mike, but they named Mike the Tiger after him. So anyway, Mike, we got Frank up in Omaha. He is trying to break the all-time shot record, but Frank Duffy, LSU, Mr. LSU in Omaha, and he said that the local Chamber of Commerce is coming out, all of them today, wearing LSU attire in that game against Tennessee. But Mike, as Frank knows, we talk a little about college football on this show. Now, I just subscribed to the AU War Report. I got to tell you, man, the film and we call it film. It's tape sessions. Frank, he's got 3 other guys on there. There's 4 guys on the. This is like.
Oh, I've been on with Mike before. He coaches us up, man. Hey, look, what I like to do is I like to tape him and send it over to the Ponderosa for when we play y'all. That's what I need to be doing.
Well, but remember, his dad was in the Army for 30-plus years, military intelligence, Fort Huachuca in Yuma, Arizona. I don't know if his dad was in MI, but I guarantee you Mike knows about counterintelligence. But let's talk some football with Frank and you and me and the rest of the world. But what's on your mind? You're putting out a lot of great content, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, the SEC is starting to take shape. Rob, it's Oklahoma and Texas are joining the conference next year. This is the last year we have of divisions. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And interestingly enough, right, and we don't get LSU in 2024. So a lot of fans are really sad to see that game go. And this is Auburn's last chance, man, to get some revenge on LSU. LSU has been dominating this matchup for the last 10 years. And they've got, Auburn's, in a new era with Hugh Freeze. So Hugh Freeze is trying to rejuvenate the offense. Auburn has had a very frustrating history with offense under the last few coaches where you've hired offensive head coaches and then you've struggled on offense. It's very frustrating. They've struggled with quarterback development. They've got Peyton Thorne on the Plains now, and Hugh Freeze is going to try to do what he can with Robbie Ashford as well. It's just one of those deals where they've really got to find out what their identity is. Morale is up. Recruiting, definitely. They're killing on the recruiting trail right now. So Hugh Freeze is putting in the work. A lot of people felt like Brian Harsin did not put in the work in recruiting.
No, he did not.
Yeah. And Hugh Freeze, man, is the complete opposite. I don't know that he stopped since he got to the Plains. His introductory press conference, he asked people for just a chance. He said, give me a chance to, earn your trust. Now,
Yeah.
Obviously, he has a past, but he meant on the football field as well too. So as a developer of young men, Hugh Freeze is really putting a lot of emphasis on making sure that they have the right type of guys. Guys understand what the expectations are, and that the team can gel in a way that may pull them through some of those close games they lost last year, including LSU. I mean, if you ask them, that's a game they probably should have won.
And in fact, Robbie Ashford, his talent was on display in that first half, and you saw what his upside could be. You really did. In fact, I don't think Harsin put him in a good position at the end of that half. I think they made the mistake of trying to do too much, and then the pick happened, because I think if you guys stay up 14-0, I think that's a totally different game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, untimely turnovers by, an inexperienced quarterback, definitely came back to bite him. But it was his best game offensively of the year, Frank. All right. And
no doubt.
I got a chance to speak with some players before the game, and they said, Mike, the game plan is going to be completely different than what we've done. Harsin waited too long to pivot his offensive strategy. And it paid dividends offensively for LSU, but it was too late in terms of the season. They had gone too far down the rabbit hole, and he probably should have won that game. So now you bring in Peyton Thorne, and what that does for Auburn is it raises the floor in the room. Guys, I'm going to spit some numbers at you real quick. Auburn has rarely had a 3,000-yard passer in the last, 3 decades. It's been very rare. Last year, the conference had 5 3,000-yard passers. Auburn obviously was not one of them. So having a 3,000-yard passer would be absolutely prolific for Auburn, right? Even in the better years, Camden, he didn't throw for the 3,000 yards, right? Neither did Jason Campbell, right? And they had undefeated seasons. So raising that floor to even what he threw for Peyton Thorne threw for last year, which I believe was about 2,800 yards, would be a huge improvement for them offensively. So behind, the Pack had 8 3,000-yard passers. Man, they play no pass defense over there.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my goodness. Right. Like, I mean, half of the quarterbacks in that league put up, pretty much Heisman numbers. Obviously Caleb Williams won the Heisman, but outside of the Pack and the SEC, no conference had no Power 5 conference had more than 3. So and they had more than 3, right? And then of those, there were 2 conference champions, Kansas State. It was Kansas State and not TCU. It's Kansas State didn't have a 3,000-yard passer, but they won the conference. It's very rare for a team to not have a 3,000-yard passer and actually win your conference. So there is some barometer that says, hey, you got to raise the floor in terms of the passing game if you want to be successful in college football. And I'll tell you what, of those teams that did not have a 3,000-yard passer but won their conference, neither made the playoff.
How you doing, sir?
They didn't make the playoff. Yeah, they didn't make the playoff. You don't have a 3,000-yard passers. You don't have a really hard time in this league.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think about, look at Auburn's record all time when they give up 400 yards or more passing against an opponent. It's 8-0. You're going to beat Auburn, as Tommy Agee famously said in 1986 at a scrimmage at Jordan-Hare. It was about 180 degrees one August. A friend of mine, Mark Green, was the original blogger with Inside the Auburn Tigers and Mark Murphy. And he said, Tommy Agee's quote, he goes, you're going to play Auburn, you're going to have to get down in the dirt and go a full 60 because we ain't giving you anything. And then he said a few other things that I can't say on the show. But he was just saying, you're going to have to get after our ass, and we're going to get after you. Frank, this, and Mike, look at the number of close games in that Auburn-LSU series. And I'm going to start with you, Mike. We're about to go to a break. I want to come back, but here's the question. I want Mike to answer it first, and then for Frank. But I know it's the first question I'm going to ask. It is at Media Days is, how quickly can we go to the 3-6 so Auburn can preserve LSU and then flip Georgia and Alabama to one at home and one on the road like it used to be before 2012? Right back with 2 smart guys and an imbecile right after this. I'm the imbecile. Be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with Mike G, the Auburn War Report, Frank Duffy, Mr. LSU Tiger, and Tiger Air, the air-conditioned football helmets, Mike, that he is director on out of LSU. So let's go with you, Mike. That Auburn LSU series, I grew up with Auburn, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, Auburn, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama. And we would occasionally play LSU. We would occasionally play Ole Miss. We always played Mississippi State. But man, that's a special series, and it is so competitive. How quickly can we get it back?
How quickly can we get back the series, or get back the wins, the wins of the series?
Yeah,
Oof.
Yeah. I mean, but it's a great national game every year. It's the weirdest series in the SEC.
Yeah, Rob, let me tell you something. LSU is chock full of 5 stars, and I think that people forgot that near the end of the Ed Orgeron era. When Brian Kelly took over, it felt kind of, I think, to a lot of people like they were, maybe trending down. And I just try to remind people that program was being mismanaged, but they did not lack talent at all. They lacked talent at all. And then Brian Kelly comes in and he wins the West in year 1. Which is, phenomenal for him, obviously. Gave him a good, sound foundation to continue to recruit at a high level, because it only took him 1 year to get proof of concept in the SEC. Look, I can win in the SEC. You can say that after 1 year. Right. Wow, that's amazing. So if he puts in the effort on the recruiting trail, I think LSU is going to be really hard to beat in the coming future. And it may be a lucky thing for Auburn that they don't have to play them every year, even though, that's a game I know a lot of people are going to miss because they have some catching up to do. On the Auburn side, man, Hugh Freeze got lucky in year 1, man. He got one of the most favorable schedule draws he could have hoped for in year 1. And then for the first year of Texas and Oklahoma, the no divisions, he got another favorable schedule draw, because when you look at some of these schedules, man, Oklahoma's 2024 schedule is brutal.
Brutal.
Wow.
Brutal.
Florida has the hardest schedule I've ever seen. It is literally the hardest schedule I have ever seen. I was like, good Lord, I don't know how they're going to survive this schedule. So,
especially where they are in their program right now, they're really at a crossroads.
Yeah.
They are literally at a crossroads, Florida.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing looking. I mean, they have 11 P5 opponents on their 24 schedule. 11. Guys, listen to this for a second. They go Miami, UCF, Florida State. That's the start of their season. They get a break in week 4 with Samford. Then they go Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Mississippi State.
Good luck.
What?
Yeah,
and that's at Texas. That's at Texas. Yeah,
I know somewhere in the SEC office they got done with this and they were like, "Yikes!" Right? Yep. So, out of conference, you've got 1, 2, 3. You've got 3 out of conference Power 5 opponents.
Yep.
3. Right? That is nuts. And then you have your SEC schedule on top of that. I mean, God, if they had played Bama, this would have been the hardest schedule of all. Yeah, undoubtedly. But I still think it's one of the worst schedule draws I've seen in a really long time. And then on the flip side, you have LSU, right? And taking a look at their 2024 opponents, LSU plays USC. I believe they play USC.
USC is in Vegas, and then we play UCLA 2 weeks later.
That's right.
We play both Californias.
Yeah, and then in terms of your SEC draw, you got Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Alabama, South Carolina, Texas A&M, Florida, Arkansas. So in conference, they got to me, if you ask me, they got a pretty favorable draw.
We did, and Oklahoma's at home in Baton Rouge, which is a big deal.
Right. So I said all that to say this: taking these two teams off each other's schedules definitely lightens the load somewhat, because there are other teams in the conference that are facing brutal stretches in 2024. Right. And so it's just going to be interesting. Auburn, I think this is a win. I think this is a game that Auburn, it's going to be a pivotal game for Hugh Freeze this season. LSU will. Right. I think it's going to be a pivotal game for him this season, especially where it's going to fall on the schedule.
Well, Mike, Doug, and Rob, and Billy Roberts are all coming down, and you are most welcome to come have gumbo at my RV if you want to come to Baton Rouge. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah,
we're gonna have drinks on my balcony in the French Quarter, and then we're going up to Baton Rouge the next day. So you are more than welcome.
Mike G, you got to do it. He's up there in Omaha on a 41-foot Bengal 1. I wish you could see it. Guess what the colors are on it? Purple, gold, and white, with 3 flat screens and 1 million Jello shots. It doesn't run on fuel; it runs on Jello shots.
Pretty much.
But let me, but I love what you just said, both of y'all. That when you break it down, here's some interesting things. What would have happened? Going back, and you never want to lose a game, Mike. But what if Tank Bigsby stays in bounds in 21? Auburn beats Bama. Would Harsin still be there, or would the other stuff, the lack of recruiting, the lack of effort, the LOM? The worst thing you can get in the military, guys always told me, was an LOM on your resume, transcript, lack of motivation. He just didn't seem like he enjoyed recruiting. But I look at that and I think about Bo Nix doesn't get hurt in the Mississippi State game. What would have happened?
I think he still gets let go the next season.
I do too.
Yeah, because the fall off was still. I mean, I don't think winning those games changes the philosophy, which eventually would have failed. Right. Yeah. So maybe they fire him later in the season, but ultimately their downfall was they didn't pivot fast enough, right, away from a game plan that was obviously not ever going to work in this league. You cannot outdevelop Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. You can't do it. You need Jimmys and Joes on the field, right?
That's exactly right.
Now, Auburn just didn't have enough of them. Like, Gus could outcoach Saban from time to time, right? But ultimately, Alabama dominated the Iron Bowl even when Gus was here, still, because they just did not have, the talent gap was so wide.
Correct.
Right. And so recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. You've got to be able to get talented guys, but you also have to be able to develop as well, too. And I think that was Gus's big failure with Bo Nix. It was you had a guy who was supposed to be a bona fide 5-star, and to put it in perspective, when you are a 5-star, that's supposed to be can't miss. That's supposed to be the guy whose floor will always have you in the game. And that's not where Bo was at most of his time at Auburn. Now, he had his best year under Harsin the last year before he got hurt. I'm glad to see him doing well out in Oregon. But ultimately, quarterbacks who are properly developed, they don't play 5 years in college.
No.
They're going after 3. No, I mean, a 4. You know why some of these old QB records stand for so long is because there's no such thing as a 4-year starter in college anymore. There's not.
Not the pro caliber. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if you are starting for 4 years, that means that you're not that good, and they're failing to recruit anybody who's good enough to come in and take the job from you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Bama, Ohio State, these guys don't have 4. There's no such thing as 4-year starter. So it's going to be one of those things where Auburn has to get a game like LSU to have proof of concept on the field that the program is heading the right direction. Because, everyone talks about NIL this and NIL that, but ultimately, as a recruit, I don't want to go to a school where we're going to get whooped by better players week in and week out. Yeah. Right. Or by better coaching week in and week out. You still need wins, man, on the field, and being able to beat LSU is going to be a huge one for Hugh Freeze. So this is a man, though, guys, that owns 2 wins versus Nick Saban, and that's a short club of people. So we'll see what he can. We can see what he can do, man. But I think the series is really going to be missed if they don't find a way to have these teams play at least every other year.
Yeah.
It's too good of a pedigree to let it go by the wayside. I can't remember a more memorable series with all the odd things that happen and all the momentum swings in this series. I mean, you've had a couple runs where LSU's been really dominant. Look, two years ago when you guys beat us like a mule up there in Auburn, I think TJ Finley still got his head on a swivel. What y'all beat us like 50-10. Came back, and by the way, Mike, you were talking about it. Actually, one of Bo Nix's best games when he came down and beat us in Baton Rouge, almost single-handedly. That was one of the greatest scrambles on like a 4th and 10 I've ever seen for the touchdown, and y'all got that win. So it's too good of a rivalry for the SEC, not in some way with maybe a 3-6, not to bring it back. It's far more exemplary of football today than our rivalry with Ole Miss from years ago. Right. It's more current.
Yeah. So, LSU is such a fascinating case study to me. All right. Now listen, you're talking to somebody who is a huge Joe Burrow fan. Like, I'm telling you, I love his story. I like his attitude. I loved everything about that season. I rooted for LSU after he started tearing it up. What he did was rare. LSU they always seem to get these generational athletes that come through there every once in a while. And Hugh Freeze has to find a way to get one of those. Like, how do we get one? Are they on sale? Like, where do you find a generational athlete every other year? Like they're doing it.
Hey, Mike, they are now. They are now with NIL.
Hey, let me ask you something, Mike, about that. And I was just reading in GatorbaitMedia.com. We have the guys Franz Beard and Buddy Martin on a lot, and Ben Troop, about the quarterback Austin Simmons, who was going to reclassify. He was going to go to Florida. Now he's not. And his dad, who's his coach, comes out and says, first off, Florida's schedule is way too tough, and they want TJ Lagway, the kid out of Texas anyway, who I think was ranked as the 9th or 10th best quarterback at the Elite 11. He's a 5-star. He's really good. But, man, you want the guy that embraces competition, don't you? I don't want the guy that backs off because the quarterback room is too crowded. I want the guy that goes, I don't care who's in there. I'm better than everybody. You want that alpha male. You don't want a beta.
Yeah, you do want a guy who's good. You want, and this is at every position. Listen, at the end of the day, I think a lot of Auburn fans have been like, when it comes to recruiting, Rob, they're saying, well, this kid's not going to come because we got this kid already, or and at the better programs, they don't worry about that, man. Like, listen, Bryce Young came in understanding he wasn't going to start year one.
Yeah,
they have such a deep pedigree at quarterback these days, man. I think Alabama has 4 starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now. The last 4 all went on to be starters in the NFL. So, so a guy comes in and he just understands, if they already recruited me, so as long as I hold up my end of the bargain, my turn will be next. And you're not worried about, you got to remember, Joe Burrow, somebody thought he was 3rd at Ohio State, right? Yep. Somebody thought he was the 3rd string quarterback.
Thank you, Ohio State.
Right. And LSU came in year one. I think the 2018 season, he was okay. I thought the talent was clear. And then they hired Joe Brady as a passing game coordinator, and look what he did, wonders for him. So and then validated that by getting his team to a Super Bowl super quick.
Correct.
After getting to the league. So ultimately, what it boils down to is you got to be able to recruit and develop. You got to be able to go out and get the players, convince them to come to your program, convince them to wait as well too. right? You convince them to wait. And you do that by evaluating properly, because when it's clear the guy in front of you is actually better, I think it's easier to wait your turn.
Yeah.
Right. And, in Alabama and Georgia and LSU, I think they have that.
They do.
I think
that's what I
Jaden
was going to
Daniels
ask you
is a
about.
good example of that too, Mike. Jaden Daniels is a good example of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Whoever's backing him up, right, has got to believe that his turn is coming. His fair turn is coming. Yeah, and that's how you hold guys on your team, because now with one freebie, kids have, they're just like, hey, if I feel like the coach is not being honest about whether he's going to play me or not, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Well, this is the interesting thing about it. Y'all both talked about these quarterback rooms. Somebody misevaluated them. Think about that in the NFL draft. We have Jim Nagy on the show a good bit, executive director of the Reese's Pieces Mobile Senior Bowl. His background's pretty cool. 18 years in the NFL. He was with the Packers. He got a Super Bowl ring. He got 2 with the Patriots, got 1 with the Seahawks. And a couple other times he went to the Super Bowl, and they didn't win it. But 6 times in his 18 years, he knows how to evaluate. That's what they do at the Senior Bowl. There are a lot of dumb people, though, that don't know how to evaluate. It's the same thing I see in the financial market world. There are a lot of people that are paralyzed. It's called paralysis by analysis. I looked at Joe Burrow. When he came to LSU, he completed 55.6% of his passes his first year. The next year, he's at 78.4% completion rate. You think Joe Brady, you think coaches and people don't matter? I mean, Mike G, good God. I mean, what is, before you started doing this, are you an engineer, Mike, mechanical engineer, or an electrical? Or
No,
absolutely. You've got a brain like our good friend Maury Gaston, American Cast Iron Pipe Company, but you're very analytical, the way you look at things. And a lot of people can't do that. They can't take all this complex minutia and put it in the vernacular like you do. Like Frank is saying, that job that Joe Brady did, he was 29 years old.
Correct.
You don't have to be old to be good, do you?
No,
Hey, Mike, he talked 4 all-pro players into coming and working out in the Baton Rouge Heat on their own. They threw 10,000 balls in practice over that spring and that summer.
Wow.
10,000 to Terrace Marshall, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. That's what and what's his name? Randy Moss's kid. That's what they did. And look, that's the mathematics behind it. And look, it takes work. And but Joe Brady came in and instilled that, and those kids who didn't have to do that, it was way outside of practice, did it, and a national championship came of it. They sacrificed and they did.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, if you're willing to put in the work, it will pay dividends. And in the summer, the coaches are not allowed to be out there. And a lot of this is just strength and conditioning and players organizing themselves to do throwing sessions.
That's what happened.
And do these things. And, they've got to put in the work if they want to gel as a team. Hugh Freeze has replaced over 50% of his roster with kids from high school or guys from the portal.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
Mike, here's a quick question. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I know you got to go. You were at Auburn when the kindly and the genteel Kevin Yoxel was the strength and conditioning coach at Auburn. God help you if you missed a practice or a workout or something.
Mm-hmm.
I have said this for years lately. Auburn's getting pushed around on the line of scrimmage. How much better is the strength and conditioning program, and is the core emphasis on being tough, not just having, a bunch of muscles?
So strength and nutrition, strength and conditioning and nutrition have come a long way. The science of nutrition has come a long way. And so you're seeing athletes be a lot bigger and faster a lot earlier in their careers. Yox had what they called Yox time. And if you were on Yox time, you had your clock set 15 minutes earlier than whatever the actual time was, because if you were 5 minutes early, you were late on Yox time. Yeah. So those guys learned the discipline of being on time. They learned They learned how to discipline their minds under Yox. And I think besides growing the strength, the actual physical strength, because you're expected to have that, it's the discipline of your mind. If you ask anybody who trains, you train to discipline your mind as well as train your body, right? Because when it's the fourth quarter and you're tired. You can't. Your mind has to tell you to keep going. Your mind has to continue to propel you forward. And you listen to the greats like like LeBron. You had a quote where he said, "Being tired is in the mind." Right? Like I'm not tired because I'm not telling myself I'm tired. I can go all day. I can do this all day. Right. Now you obviously need to train that way, but it's going to be really important for them to develop some sort of physicality because the SEC is going to be rough physically. And, that's one of the things I remember about that LSU game, man, dude, in the early 2000s, they used to talk about how hard hitting it was. The players would always be like, man, listen, ice baths and, and stem therapy and everything, because it was such a hard hitting game. You felt that one after, man. And that's what these schedules is going to be, more games like that. So they got to get their bodies prepared for it, certainly.
When Cam Newton can carry Patrick Peterson the entire field into the end zone with him being on his back for 35 of those yards, that's how hard hitting that game was.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mike, I know I promised I'd get you've got a show to do, but I was going to say the 06 Auburn LSU game, the most hard hitting game in memory, 7-3, Auburn won. But Mike, I know you got to go, but tell people how they can follow you on the War Report. And by the way, when I come down to Columbus, if Frank and I come down from Atlanta, when I go over there to see Mallory, will you get on the Chattahoochee River as our guest and go and do some class 4 and 5 rapids? Have you done that yet?
I have.
You're not afraid of anything. Let me see your war face. Let me see your War Report face.
I don't know about that.
Work on it. You don't scare me.
Well, you can check our work out at thewarreport.com. Check us out on YouTube. We've got some interesting content that's going to be coming up. Cole Kubelik joins our show often to break down quarterbacks and other positions. SEC Media Days is coming, so we're going to have a lot of interesting content coming out of Nashville that week, live from the Grand Hyatt in downtown Nashville.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, thank you so much, Mike, for taking time to join us.
Thanks,
Let's
Rob.
do it again
Thanks,
next
Frank.
week. Okay.
All right.
All the work, Mike. Good seeing you, buddy.
Great stuff.
Great
Hey,
guy.
let's do this. Yeah, he is fantastic.
His work is great. I've read his things a couple times. He does a great job. Him and Doug do a fabulous job of getting behind the scenes at Auburn. It really does.
Yeah, we really do. And I go on the War Report on YouTube. They break down tape. He's got Ike and the guys. There's 4 guys, and it's like a coaching.
It's
scouting.
It really is. And let me tell you something. If opponents. I was half joking and half being serious. Yeah. As opponents, they really should know. They could use that as some research. Honestly,
they really could. Well, Mike being an Army guy, his dad in there 30+ years. Yeah. Let's head out to Oklahoma City.
I gotta run, boys. Yeah. Y'all take care. Y'all
Frank, be good. Good luck today. Keep me posted, okay?
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. All right. Frank Duffy with us out there in Omaha. Tyler McComas, KREF Radio over in Oklahoma City. Norman's 20 minutes from y'all's studio? I mean, right there in your backyard. And I'm telling you, I was thinking about you last week. I think you were up in Cape Cod or Whaling or whatever up in New England vacation. But that schedule that y'all got, that's big. But here's a couple. I've already got a bunch of questions from some Oklahoma fans going. First off, Brent Venables is a damn good coach. I know Tommy Tuberville a number of times, almost hired him at Auburn. Look at his 10-year record at Clemson. He didn't forget how to coach. How big a deal was it for Lincoln Riley to leave and take 22 guys, including the eventual Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams, away? And you lost 4 games in your last 5 games, each by 3 points. You got beat badly by TCU and Texas, but there's a lot of hope. It's Oklahoma football, the 5th winningest program in college football history. You ain't going anywhere. And I'm not an Oklahoma Chamber of Commerce guy. I'm just saying I like to call it like I see it. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, I think you're right. I think that this is a big year to prove that this is the right coaching staff to get you back to that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the new SEC schedule. Yeah, it's really difficult. I think it's amazing. In terms of entertainment value, it was a 10 out of 10. I mean, in our first year, I'm going to get to go to Auburn and Baton Rouge and Ole Miss, places that we've never been before. And then you only get 3 SEC home games, but Tennessee, Alabama, and South Carolina. South Carolina on its own, which is probably the third most attractive on that list, be the most attractive home game that they've had here in several years. So, I mean, it's amazing. But you're going to go from your easiest schedule in my lifetime this year to the toughest schedule of my lifetime going into next year. So you got to take advantage while you have the easiest schedule in my lifetime and at least win 10 games this year. But no, I mean, take anyone. Losing a Heisman Trophy winner, best player in college football off your roster, new coaching staff, the new offensive coordinator, two new coordinators on each side. I mean, it was a total program mentality switch as well, which you really have to consider. Like, if you were going from OC to OC, I think maybe it's a little bit of a smoother transition. But OU wants to be a program now that's still potent offensively, but a program that wants to be dominant defensively now, which they haven't been in several years. So just all the changes that have happened, things have calmed down around here. And yeah, there's some optimism that though they're not really getting any love nationally this offseason, none whatsoever, I think there's some confidence here in the state that they're going to get back to playing some good football.
Yeah. Well, I look at Jeff Lebby, what he did with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Jeff Lebby's not there. Well, he's there, but he's really not there in that Sugar Bowl game when Baylor and Ron Roberts, who's now Auburn's defensive coordinator in that creeper defense, really slowed down what Ole Miss was trying to do. And I know that the quarterback, Matt Corral, got hurt. I understand all that, but let's talk about Jeff Lebby and his offensive style and what does it compare to, say, what Lincoln Riley was doing?
Well, it's very up-tempo. I think it's even faster when they want to go up-tempo than what it was before with Lincoln. I think that there's maybe more of a dedicated effort running the football. I mean, you look at Matt Corral's numbers his last year at Ole Miss and how many times he was running the ball. I think the game where Tennessee fans were throwing stuff on the field in the Ole Miss game, Matt Corral ran it like 40 times, something crazy like that. So the quarterback run game, I think, is going to be a bigger element of the offense this year with Dylan Gabriel and maybe five-star freshman Jackson Arnold. We'll see about that. But they go up tempo, but they don't use it all the time. They try to strategically use it to keep the defense on its heels. The problem was last year, they didn't have an offensive line that could block anyone when they weren't going up tempo. So there were several games last year where, the defense wasn't fantastic last year. Just go look at the numbers. And the offense was very up and down. When it was good, it was elite. But when it was bad, it was bad. They'd have consecutive 3 and outs. So they'll continue to go up tempo at times this year. I think they're going to try to slow it down a little bit more because with the defense that on its own struggled at times last year, it definitely didn't help things out when Jeff Lebby is going 4 or 5 consecutive possessions of 3 and out. And the possessions are lasting 45 seconds because they're going so fast. That's the one thing they got to figure out this year. The offensive line is the entire catalyst of this football team. I think the defense will be better. But can they block people? Can they run the ball? Can they protect the quarterback if they're not going up tempo? If the answer to that is yes, I think this team can absolutely win a Big 12 title. If the answer to that is no, and they can only move people off the ball when they're going up tempo and the D-line is on his heels a little bit, then I think it's going to be an up and down year offensively once again.
Yeah. Well, in the state of Oklahoma, there are about a little over 5 million people. Number of blue chip players in a typical year, say 4 stars. I mean, there are only 33 5-stars in a typical year in the whole country. But how many blue chip players, D1 players will come out of the state in a typical year?
4 to 5, I think, is probably a pretty good number. Last year, you saw several kids go D1. And in fact, Oklahoma had every single Power 5 conference was represented last year. And of course, some conferences had multiple players, but you had kids go to North Carolina. You had a 4-star wide receiver go to Alabama. Some SEC schools, especially Alabama, are really starting to make their way into the state. So, yeah, you're right. Look, Oklahoma's not Texas. It's not Florida. It's not Georgia. It's not California. What's a good comp to it? Maybe Mississippi. Maybe the state of Arkansas. I think it's maybe a little bit deeper than the state of Arkansas. It's not going to be a class that has 20 kids that are 4 and 5-star players. But you take the 4 and 5 best players from this state. Those are pretty good players, man. I mean, they're really. I mean, just looking at this year. You've got a 5-star defensive lineman, David Stone, who Oklahoma's in on, who's got Oklahoma roots. He's born and bred here. He's playing at IMG down in Florida for various reasons, but he's still an Oklahoma kid. You got Danny Okoye, who's just a freak of an athlete, 4-star kid from the Tulsa area. Oklahoma's in on him as well. So the top flight players in this state are good. They're elites. But, yeah, you don't have the depth like you do in Georgia, Florida, Texas, and some other big-time areas.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Texas, number one, a typical year, about 400 Division I kids come out of that state. And in a lot of years, about 15 to 20% of the quarterbacks around the country come out of the state of Texas. It's amazing. But you mentioned Mississippi. That's the, ninth most talent-rich state in America. Alabama's 6, Georgia's 4, Florida's 2 or 3. California's losing so damn many people, and they're going to Florida, and that numbers are going up. And a lot of these athletes are leaving the state and coming here. But I just to say, Mississippi and Louisiana, Mississippi per capita puts more players in the NFL than any state in America. But Oklahoma, I've watched it over the years. You can't have a program like what they've got without really good high school football in the state. Oklahoma City, you think about the love of high school football in Texas. How similar is that in Oklahoma?
Yeah, it's a football state for sure. I think it's a very good high school baseball state as well. It's an okay basketball state. I mean, there's some good players, Blake Griffin, Trey Young that have come out of this area, but it's a football state to its core for sure. To really get in the weeds a little bit, you've had some areas in the state that used to produce high-level talent, very high-level talent for whatever reason, haven't recently, like Lawton, which has a big Army base. And, actually in 1990, a school in Lawton won the national championship, high school national championship for high school football. They haven't, been as legit here recently. But it's strong. And for the SEC fans that don't know, can you build a national championship team based purely off Oklahoma kids? I don't think so. Can you win a national championship based purely on Texas kids? Texas kind of did that in 2005. Florida could probably do that. Georgia could probably do that. There's some schools out there that could win a title and just recruit kids in their own backyard. That's not the case at Oklahoma. But the thing is, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and if you've ever watched an OU Texas game, the stat always pops up on TV. Dallas-Fort Worth is actually closer to Norman than it is to Austin, Texas. So Oklahoma has always needed the state of Texas. They've always needed that Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's why I rolled my eyes a little bit, and I heard a comparison earlier or late last week about, Oklahoma's the next Nebraska. Watch out for Oklahoma being the next Nebraska. That's ridiculous. That's not true. No. I mean, Oklahoma has way more talent in state than Nebraska does. And Nebraska doesn't have a Dallas-Fort Worth. It doesn't have a Texas just a couple of hours away, So, and I think you got to look at this as well. Look at the current staff when we're talking about recruiting. Where'd they come from? Well, the majority of them came from Clemson. Todd Bates was 24/7 Sports Recruiter of the Year just a couple of years ago. This staff has roots in the state of Florida, which is where you want to be. That's where Bama wants to be. It's where Georgia wants to be. It's where everyone wants to be. Last year's class that Oklahoma had, which was a top 5 class, I think it was ranked 4 by 24/7. That's the best job they've ever done in the state of Florida in one class. So they'll continue to do well in Oklahoma. They're going to continue to clean house in the state of Texas, absolutely. And I'm not saying that OU is ever going to go and beat out Georgia for 3 kids in its own backyard or beat out Bama for 4 or 5 kids. But they're going to be active in the Southeast and especially in the state of Florida. So I just don't ever worry about OU recruiting in the SEC. Will they ever routinely recruit better than Georgia and Bama? I don't think so. I think OU could be recruiting rankings-wise, maybe similar to LSU most years, though we all recognize the talent that's in Louisiana. They'll probably be 4th, 5th on the pecking order year in and year out, but I don't think OU is ever going to struggle to recruit in the SEC.
I don't either. And I look at the state of Georgia. About 250 D1 kids will come out of that state. Alabama, about 150 this year. Jason Caldwell, inside the Auburn Tigers, said on this show last year, Alabama as a state for high school football is where Georgia was 10 years ago. Well, look at the top 10 kids in Georgia this year. 2 of them are committed to Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, we're in a completely different world. It used to be for you to come in to Alabama and get a kid away from Auburn and Alabama was rare. And now it's really not that uncommon. It also has to do with the assistant coaches who have those deep relationships in the different states. But OU is a brand. I wouldn't say never that they can't do anything. They're what I call part of the television football aristocracy back in the 70s. They, who were your two greatest running backs in history? I'm going to just say that I agree or disagree. Billy Sims is from Hooks, Texas. Adrian Peterson is from Palestine, Texas.
Yep.
So there you go right there. And then your all-time, where's Brian Bosworth from? He's from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're right. And,
Tommy Harris was a 5-star defensive lineman, which you're trying to get back to. He's from Killeen, Texas. So Texas is always going to be, and you know what? Maybe your recruiting pitch now in the state of Texas is as strong as it's ever been, because A&M for 10 years now has been able to say, well, you can go to Oklahoma or Texas, but we're the lone SEC program in the country. And that's why A&M, or in the state of Texas, that's why A&M was so mad when OU and Texas went out to the SEC, because they didn't have that edge anymore. I think OU and Texas moving to the SEC affects Texas A&M more than anybody else in the conference. And I think that's why they were so unhappy about it. You mentioned California, and this is a trend I've noticed too. California used to be top 3 year in and year out for talent. I think Georgia's overtaken the state of California now for talent. You're right. People are moving out of California. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to the Southeast. I don't think that trend's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, Tyler, hold that thought. I want to go back to something about the grapes of wrath. Remember people leaving Oklahoma and going to California? It's flipping. We're going to be right back. Tyler McComas, KREF Radio in Oak City and Norman.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Back Tyler McComas out in Oklahoma City talking OU football. And I want to say something real quick about one of our sponsors, Tom Martin's Body Shop, G.E. Patterson, B.B. King, downtown Memphis. If you're in a collision, car, truck, SUV, and you've got to have work done on your vehicle, just go to the website, Tom Martin's Body Shop. I've known Tom 28 years, was training with him for a marathon. Tough guy, Mississippi State fan, 3 great boys. But Tom Martin's Body Shop, best thing about it, the office makes all the paperwork and all that other stuff, which I hate, very easy. So Tom Martin's Body Shop, G.E. Patterson, B.B. King in Memphis, and Rumble Boxing Gym for bottom line, 1835 Union Avenue, open every day of the week. Workouts, get in there weekdays, 5:30 in the morning, 15 3-minute rounds. It's 45-minute workouts, exercises, calisthenics, up downs, burpees, dumbbells. Hit that bag. You will walk out of there like you've just swam. It is an incredible workout. RumbleBoxingGym.com. Find them on our website. And Tyler, just looking at Oklahoma, Tony Casillas, so many great players from Oklahoma. And I think about this. I think Oklahoma's record against the teams on their schedule in 24 is 76-30-1. I don't think Oklahoma has a losing record against anybody in the SEC. I'm looking at it as an outsider, but I've watched Oklahoma since I watched TV on football on TV. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people that think what's happened in the Big 12 is going to happen in the SEC. I just think it's going to make Oklahoma better.
Yeah, I think that we talked about that last time. It's whatever the ceiling of Oklahoma football is now, whatever that is in 2024 and beyond, I think that we're going to see it because I think this conference demands it. The Big 12, not so much. They played a style of football that is not – it's not what Oklahoma has been in the past. that doesn't mean that OU, when I say that, that doesn't mean that OU is going to win more games in the SEC than they will in the Big 12. I don't think consistently that is going to be the case. What I mean by that is the best version of Oklahoma. And you're already seeing it with support staff. They were behind so long. They've caught up with that, with facilities, with NIL. Just their football program overall is going to be the best it can be, because that's what it demands in the SEC if you want to keep up and if you want to be serious about winning a lot of football games. So, yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of excitement around that. Bigger home games, better home games, bigger road games. I think OU is 0-1 all time against Ole Miss. They lost that 99 Independence Bowl. I think they're 1-2 against LSU all time, which I'll tell you what, OU fans feel like they owe LSU one. And we'll see if they can give them that in Baton Rouge in 2024. But that last time they played in the Peach Bowl, that was about as ugly of a football game as I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, and I'm looking here, I'm getting a lot of stuff from listeners. There's, Oklahoma fans flock to Dallas, hang out at the state fair. If they can't get inside the stadium, they just take over. Dave Cody, my friend, attended 38 Texas OU games in the Red River Shootout, sports anchor down in Austin. Texas Tech also heavily recruits Dallas, no doubt about that. And you think about so many, the Texas relationship, I-35, you're right. You're not that far to get to Dallas-Fort Worth. Of course, that's a massive area. But the kids there in Texas, it's a lot like Auburn in Georgia and Auburn in Florida. And in fact, the Athletic did a story 2 years ago, the all-time Auburn team with players they recruited out of the state of Georgia versus players from the state of Alabama. Hey, your quarterback, Cam Newton from Georgia, College Park, against Pat Sullivan for Auburn. Your running backs were James Brooks and Joe Cribbs, who were all pro guys, William Andrews. I see a lot of similarities to that. Oklahoma, what I'm saying is, like Arkansas, they feel that way about Texas. Mm-hmm. It's a very let me ask you this. They've only played 15 times, and most of those were in the early part of the 1900s, Oklahoma and Arkansas. Do you see that being a rivalry? I mean, when I drive out to Oklahoma City and go to dog trials in Shawnee or whatever, it's always that 10 Killer State Park recreation area, right when you cross that border in the Ouachita Mountains. That part of Oklahoma, people don't talk about. They always talk about the Dust Bowl and, the Grapes of Wrath when all the people moved to California. But Arkansas people, I think now are excited. They're not on the farthest western flank of the conference. And then Missouri, here I'm asking you a lot, but Missouri, they think they've got this rivalry with Oklahoma. I don't see that, but I see one developing with Arkansas just because Arkansas is really serious about winning and everything.
Yeah, no, those are two very good questions. I'll start off with Missouri. No one views Missouri as a rival. No one cares about Missouri as a rival. In fact, even with all the excitement of the new SEC schedule last week, the one thing that everyone said, is that you have to go to Columbia and play Missouri. There's no one cares about Missouri, just to put it plainly.
Yeah.
Now, Arkansas, they've never played each other home and home, which is fascinating. Yeah. The last time they played was that 2001 Cotton Bowl. So I think from the Arkansas side, yes, absolutely. They would be totally down to make that a legit rivalry. And, Arkansas has been looking for that legit rival since they entered the SEC. I know that they have the Golden Boot with LSU, but has LSU ever really looked at that rivalry and said, yeah, we really care about this? It doesn't feel that way to me as an outsider. So Arkansas has been seemingly looking for a rival to kind of call its own. It really hasn't developed with the Missouri rivalry. A&M maybe a little bit with that home and home, but I don't know who Arkansas's true natural rival is. I know they hate Texas more than they hate anyone, and I think that could turn into something.
That's it.
But to answer that question, Rob, I think you have to understand how the OU fan base views things. And there's a lot of OU fans that would say, we have one rival. It's Texas. Oklahoma State's not a rival. It's the most lopsided in-state rivalry in the nation. It's not a rivalry. It's just another game that we play. I mean, that's what a lot of people say around here. So for Oklahoma to, and it's a little bit arrogant, I understand, but for Oklahoma to accept someone as a new rival, it's going to have to be a program that they respect. I think OU would welcome Alabama with open arms. Hey, we're a blue blood. They're a blue blood. We'll accept Alabama as a rivalry. Florida, I think that there would be, hey, yeah, we could get something going with Florida. There's just not that respect with Arkansas that there is for the other programs in the SEC. I think Tulsa would be a battleground for that rivalry if it did ever develop. There's a lot of Arkansas fans in Tulsa. Of course, there's a lot of OU fans in Tulsa as well. I think that there's a chance someday it could get there. But Rob, I think it would have to take 30 years maybe and a lot of like intense classic games to get there. I mean, OU fans are just so reluctant just to say, oh yeah, we'll accept someone as a rivalry. You don't have a lot of history with them there. It's just kind of it's a unique thing. And maybe it could get there, but you're going to have some classic moments with Arkansas to get there.
Yeah. And I mean, it takes time. You don't have a rivalry unless you start playing on each other's campuses. That's where it really happens. And, you also mentioned something on our first visit, which was about a month ago, the Chamber of Commerce in Norman. They went to Lexington, Fayetteville, and Tuscaloosa. 11 million economic impact for a typical home game, because the Big 12 schools, most of them, they don't travel that well. But the SEC schools will. I mean, everybody remembers, I think it was not that long ago when Georgia in 2017 went up to South Bend and almost half the stadium was Georgia fans. Now, they don't do that every year. That's one of those rare road trips, whatever. But the Oklahoma fans, are they going to be ready to travel to Baton Rouge and Gainesville and Knoxville and Auburn and Tuscaloosa, even without tickets? The SEC motto is, we're going and we're just going to buy whatever the street will sell us.
So there are 4 road games their first year in the SEC. Some will go to 4, others will go to 3, decent number will go to 2, but everyone's going to go to 1. That's the thing. Yeah. Everyone will go to at least 1 road game. I mean, I think Missouri will probably be the least attended out of the 4, to be honest with you. But there'll be a ton of OU fans that go to Baton Rouge. There'll be a ton of OU fans that go to Oxford. And there'll be a good amount of OU fans that go to Auburn as well. OU fans travel extremely well. They're super excited about this. Ask Tennessee fans. Tennessee fans who went to the OU Tennessee game in 2015. And they'll tell you, oh my God, there were so many people. Ask Ohio State fans in 2017 how many OU fans came up there. Now, it's a little bit tougher to have that type of turnout when you've got 3 of those games in a year than you do once every 3 or 4 years. But SEC fans don't have to worry about OU traveling. They will absolutely be there. They will absolutely show up, and they'll be ready to have a good time and experience some new places. We've been craving this. We've been dying this. There's nothing exciting about going to Kansas or Texas Tech or Baylor or Iowa State. Like, OU fans are passionate. They've been waiting for this, and they're going to show up in droves. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you just think about it. I remember back August 31st, 2018 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We're down there for the Auburn-Washington game. Hell, there were 7,000 or 8,000 Husky fans there, and we talked to a bunch of them. They knew all about Auburn in the SEC, but they flew from SeaTac, Seattle-Tacoma Airport, and they flew from out there. But Atlanta's got big alumni clubs for about every school in the country, especially the southern schools. Guarantee you there are a lot of Sooners there. But they just come into the airport, get on the MARTA, and go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, stay at the Omni or wherever you stay 2 or 3 days. And that's the thing about it. Atlanta Airport on the south side of Atlanta is about an hour and a half from Auburn's campus. So it's going to be easy for them to get to these places. I mean, fly to Jacksonville, go to the birthplace of Leonard Skinner in the Hell House. It's a lot of scenic stuff that you can see down there. But when the fans come out to Oklahoma, I think that's going to be cool. Oklahoma City is a great place to live. It's an awesome place to live.
Yeah.
They've got everything they do, they're good at. I know with the Grizzlies rivalry with the Oklahoma City Thunder, I mean, man, that's Bricktown's a cool place, but kind of open up people's eyes. And we got a few more minutes before you got to go, but I'm trying to get, because I've got so many questions now, I can't get to all them. People asking about Oklahoma, but I think there's going to be as much curiosity on the part of the fans when y'all come to visit. I think you're going to be welcomed. I think people are going to want to say, we want you to have a good time because we are a giant family that's close knit. We pull for each other. I know people, they don't always, but I do.
Yeah. By the way, I live in Oklahoma City, and I don't know what the perception is nationally of it, but if you have a negative perception of it, if you're an SEC fan, if you show up to Oklahoma City, you're going to be blown away. The restaurant scene here is extremely underrated. The beer scene here is extremely underrated. And one thing everyone says And this kind of falls in line with most places in the South. Everyone's super nice here. And that is really echoed with the fan base. You know, OU fans in the past, and I was at the 2003 national championship game, OU and LSU. OU fans still talk about how they were treated by LSU in New Orleans, and not in a good way, in a bad way. And that's fine. Like, we know what we're getting into with some of these fan bases. They are intense. You know, we've heard the stories before. The one thing about the OU fan base is they take pride on being the nice, welcoming fan base. I know Nebraska fans nationally, they kind of have that, like, oh, Nebraska, they're the nicest fan base. Oklahoma's very similar to that. So whether it's the Auburn fans or the South Carolina fans or the Florida fans, no one's going to come here and get treated poorly. Everyone that comes here is going to get treated very, very well. And maybe that changes over time. Maybe once they get in the SEC, maybe they become a little bit more intense. Not to say that it's not an intense fan base. You're just not going to – no one's going to be screaming tiger bait at you right when you're walking to the stadium, right? There's a lot of welcoming people. It's just a very friendly place. And I think that if that's kind of your scene, if that's what you like, OU will be a place. And it's a stadium where a lot of cool things have happened. You know, the Heisman Park is 50 feet behind the stadium with all the Heisman statues. Wow. There's a lot of really cool history. It's a cool place for sure. Yeah,
there's always been a lot of following of Oklahoma from CBHS, my high school where I graduated, Christian Brothers High School, because Buddy Leak went out there and played with Billy Vessels. And, you know, he had a website. Buddy died 2 or 3 years ago, but Southern Fried Sooner, I knew his son Steve was a friend of mine. You just, if you're a football fan, you have always followed Oklahoma. And I think it's going to be fun. But, yeah, you're right. Oklahoma City, it's got everything. Bricktown. Yeah. They call it Bricktown. Why?
I mean, everything around there is kind of brick. So, like, the entrance to it is Bricktown.
Obviously.
It's kind of more of a historical background there. But they also have a Midtown area, which I live in, which is really cool. They've done some really cool things down there. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great city. Listen, thank you so much for taking time to join us. Let people know. I got the app on my phone. I can hear y'all show about your daily radio show, how to contact you and follow you and all you're doing. And again, thanks for your time. I look forward to the next visit. You're opening up a lot of people's eyes. I got a bunch of questions, so I'll get to those next time, but thank you.
Yeah, 2 to 6 Central. I'm on the air. Search KREF in the App Store. We talk OU all day. We talk OU, college football, and really heavy SEC. From 2 to 3 Central, I want to plug this show. 2 to 3 Central, I do an all recruiting hour. So we brought up Florida's great recruiting weekend yesterday.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's great. So it's all recruiting for an hour from 2 to 3. So if any of your fans really like recruiting, KREF in the App Store, download our app, and you can listen to it that way if you're out of the area.
Hey, you cannot beat local coverage, and let's do it again soon. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Tyler McComas, KREF Radio out in Oak City, Norman. And that what we're trying to do is expand. Like I said, we had Josh Graham on WSJS, Winston-Salem, covers Wake Forest and the ACC. You know, we're based in the heart of SEC country. Follow Memphis, the SEC, Arkansas State, Sun Belt, Big 12, ACC, Pac-12, Big 10, Sun Belt Conference. I love it all, okay? Because we all play each other. And that's why I don't want to see us go in college sports to just the haves and have-nots. I mean, you can say to an extent we already have that, but I've always followed Oklahoma. And I think the coolest thing about it is their fan – I think people – if you look at the state of Oklahoma, it is a blood red state. It is as American as it gets. You ever spend any time out there? Those are great people. Oak State, Oklahoma, Tulsa. Remember, Tulsa, Oklahoma is the world headquarters of OK Oil Company. That's where Mr. Brewster worked, who handled the Clampett's oil money. $85 million. Yeah, doggy. Uncle Jed, Mr. Brewster. At one time, Tulsa, Oklahoma was the oil capital of the world. And you talk about money they have in Texas. Yes, they have a lot. There's a lot of oil money. And OU alumni, Tulsa, or as Uncle Jed said, Tulsa, Oklahoma, they got a lot. Oklahoma State, don't forget, T. Boone Pickens went to Texas A&M his freshman year. His major wasn't what he needed to do what he wanted to do. He made a lot of money. He just died a couple of years ago. T. Boone Pickens graduated from Oklahoma State. He gave that school, while he was living in a series of gifts several years ago, of $350 million. Oklahoma, there's a lot of money in that state. It's going to be wild having them in the SEC. We know about Texas. We know about Oklahoma. Getting a lot of good intel coming in here. You can fly directly to the Oklahoma City airport or fly to Dallas and drive 2 hours up I-35 to Norman. It ain't that far, 3 hours from Tulsa. And Tulsa, it's another really, really neat city on the Arkansas River. Tulsa's beautiful. And you talk about beer gardens and the microbreweries, they've got them in Tulsa, Oklahoma City. Folks are going to have a lot of fun. You take that trip because you can fly from anywhere to Oklahoma City. And it's about 20, 25 minutes south on I-35 to Norman. And that's 80,000 plus every game. It is big, big, big time. And again, Brent Venables did not get a football lobotomy. Let me repeat that. He didn't forget how to coach when he left Clemson. Remember, had Lincoln Riley not taken 22 of their best players, including the Heisman Trophy winner, although I think that could have gone to someone else like maybe Stetson Bennett or someone, but Oklahoma, they took the gut, Lincoln Riley did, of that team and took off to California is the place you ought to be. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly. That's what he did. Oklahoma, I can assure you, is going to take a lot of pride in being in the SEC. And look, they're going to recruit. Remember, you've seen the 30 for 30 of the hotel in Philadelphia, Mississippi, in Neshoba County, where the Texas and OU coaches rented rooms there for 3 or 4 months. The Courtship of Marcus Dupree by Willie Morris, great writer. It's a book everybody ought to read. Let's go to a native son of Corpus Christi, which translated in English means body of Christ. Native son, Rodney Orr, great man, tighter insider. It's only $48 a year. Think about that, $48 a year. And it's basically like having the best attorney, the best writers, the best research people on retainer all the time. Rodney Orr, tighter insider. Never is there a moment when we ain't talking about college football. And let me say this. This report is brought to you by the great folks at May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport. Dr. Wayne May started it all back in 1964. His commitment, his mission was simple. Provide the very best, genuine, loving care for dogs, cats, and other animals for all of their clients. We all love our animals. If you love them, no matter where you live, it's worth the drive. May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa, Northport, Alabama. They even have a dog and daycare and cat daycare facility called Camp May. It's got its own swimming pool. And if you got a bunch of cats that live in your house, 3 or 4 cats, they can all be there together in the connecting cat condos. So speaking of big cats, Rodney Orr, recruiting's cranking up. The 2024 schedule was announced since we last talked. But we know one thing. Alabama will field a football team in 2023 before we get to 24. And tell us what's going on down there.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much the same, recruiting visits coming in on, throughout the week and primarily on the weekends, of course, in June. And, the camps have been pretty active. I think they had 9 camps that they're about to wrap up this week for this month. So it's been really busy in that regard. And, I think the one thing, Rob, that everyone continues to talk about, and we've talked about on your show repeatedly, is the quarterback. So, it's been kind of the hot topics right now, and things will probably pick up quite a bit as we move towards SEC Media Days, and then, of course, into the start of fall camp. That'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. People look at the world we live in now with the portal. A lot of these quarterbacks, they're not willing to stick around and be developed. But look at Mac Jones. Look at Tua. Look at, Bryce Young. All these guys waited their time. And then you look at other places, kids or their dads, like Austin Simmons' dad, making the comment about his son flipping from Florida to Ole Miss. Florida's schedule's too tough, and they want DJ Lagway. I mean, my God, wherever that kid goes, he's going to Ole Miss. They got a pretty good quarterback room as well. I look at Alabama. Let's talk about Tommy Rees and that quarterback room that he's got. In the past, how's he managed it? You want to have 4 quarterbacks, don't you? Don't you want those guys? I mean, the more people you put in the room, the more testosterone levels go up. You want a bunch of, you never know when somebody gets hurt. We know that fact. That's a good thing, isn't it? Alpha males, no time for betas.
Yeah, I think, the rule of thumb has always been, of course, now it's changed, but I mean, you'd love to have 4 or 5 quarterbacks. Alabama's got 5 right now. And so that really tells you something if you're an Alabama fan and you finished spring practice with 4 quarterbacks and you went out and got one in the portal. It's not about insurance. It's about saying, hey, we need somebody. So the question is for Alabama, can Tyler Buckner be that guy? And again, I think all the feedback we've gotten from the 7-on-7s that they're having right now is that he's doing really, really well. And I think we'll just have to wait until camp and see how it all plays out. We've talked about the quarterbacks quite a bit in the past, and it's pretty much the same thing. We know that Milroe's an incredible athlete, and he's got to continue to improve as a passer. I just think Ty Simpson is just a matter of maturity. I mean, and when I say maturity, I'm talking about as a player, managing the offense, managing the team. I mean, a lot of those things, and sometimes that takes time. Mac Jones was the same way. So then you have the 2 young players, of course, Eli Holstein and Dylan Lonergan, both have a lot of promise. But it's they've got to find the quarterback, Rob. I think you've got to be able to have a quarterback nowadays. They're talking about being physical up front. That's great. You've got to be able to run the ball. You've got to be able to, be physical on defense too. All of those things. I think that's something they're moving back towards, definitely. But again, I think the quarterback, having a guy who can effectively, efficiently distribute the ball to receivers is really key. I think that's going to be the key. What guy can do that? I heard someone say that these guys all have the athletic ability to make plays when everything breaks down. And that is true. And that's a great trait to have. But think about this too, Rob. Think about what Nick Saban said after A-Day. He said, I'm glad that our guys have athleticism and could do these things, but we've got to have a guy who can manage our offense and distribute the ball to our playmakers. And that's what they're looking for.
Well, now looking at that 2024 schedule, the quarterback situation this year is going to work itself out. It always does. Like Roman Harper said on the show a month ago, and Nick, we trust they get it done. 24 schedule and beyond. Are you a 3-6 fan or 1-7? And do you want to see Alabama keep the rivalries, obviously, with Auburn, but also LSU and Tennessee? Or do you want to go to a 1-7? Or do you have something out there that you hadn't even told me about? The whole world is ready to hear it.
No, I just kind of look at all of them, and I don't really kind of side with anything. I think that you never really want to lose those rivalries that you have, with Tennessee, LSU, and Auburn. I think those are something that, I've been following this since 1968, and they played those teams every year. You wouldn't know what to do without them on the schedule. Again, I also understand things change. So I really like, Rob, that they're going to a schedule or a rotation that's going to allow you to play every team every few years, couple of years or so.
Yes.
And I think that is important. I think that's something that I think is good. It's a good change. I want to see Alabama play in Texas every couple of years and vice versa. And I want to see them playing Oklahoma and these different teams. And, I think they should play Georgia more. I think they should play Florida more. And I'm talking about all these teams. Auburn should do the same, obviously. I think that's something that, you're in the conference. You shouldn't go every 4 or 5 years and not play a team within your conference. That's just me. That's the way I look at it. You should be able to experience each road trip, as a fan, but especially as players too. So I think that's what the conference is supposed to be about.
Well, the conference is only going to work if everybody has familiarity with one another. I mean, going and making the road trips and whatever. And I'm totally with you. The model we have right now, that Georgia still has never played in College Station, and there's some teams that still haven't played each other at their home field.
That's amazing too, Rob. Think about that. We're going into 11 seasons, and Georgia's never been to College Station. I don't remember their schedule. I know they go to Texas and they come to Alabama in 2024. They may go to College Station this coming year, 2023, right? Don't they do? I think they do go to college.
I don't think, no, I don't think Georgia does.
They don't? Okay, well.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I can verify that. But the bottom line is your conference is only going to be successful if you're going to each other's places, and you've got to have familiarity. Again, that's what makes the whole thing so much more fun, is going to each other's campuses and being on the campus. And, a lot of the fans go without tickets. They know they don't have tickets, and they're just going to go. They're going to try to get in. If not, they just want to be there. And that's what makes it so much fun. But, I think, Rodney, the belief, here's an interesting thing. You mentioned about, Kevin Skarbinski brought this up on the show Saturday morning, that Alabama and Georgia Alabama's played Penn State as many times since 1980 in the regular season as they have played Georgia. And he said, Alabama missed the Herschel Walker era. But he said the flip side is Georgia missed 3 years of having to play against Alabama. In 80 and 81 and 82, they're pretty good, like they always are. So I'm with you. The bottom line is Uncle Charlie, my good friend, back in the fall of 2019, put this algorithm together back then with a 14-game league before we knew Oklahoma and Texas were coming. It was rumored that for years that the SEC should go get them. But he had a system put together that if you stayed at a school for 4 years, you would play at every school on the road, and you'd play them at your home stadium. That's what we've got to have. And I think it's great.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. I mean, I think that's what you need schedule-wise, But you said something, and, I know you don't probably want to go far into it, but I'll just mention, you're right. Kevin Skarbinski was right that Herschel Walker never played against Alabama. Alabama in that time was coming off, 2 straight national championships, 78, 79, 80. They were ranked number 1 for like the first 8 weeks until that thing over in Jackson, Mississippi, when Mississippi State beat Alabama, snapped that 28-game winning streak. But that would have been a great matchup. Can you imagine back then what kind of matchup that would have been? But and of course you mentioned the playing Penn State more. Of course, now you have to remember too, they had a 10-year home and home with Penn State, which I don't know that you'll ever see something like that again.
That was incredible. That was incredible. Was it 80 to 89 or
81 to 90? 90 was the last home game they had, and
I remember watching in the newsroom at WRBL News 3 on your side on 13th Street in Columbus, Georgia, Saturday afternoon. We're going in there doing the 6:00 news, and as the new young reporter, I was helping produce the 6:00 news after I'd been out in the field for about 15 hours. And Thomas Rayam from Orlando, Florida, 6'7", 290-pound defensive lineman, jumps up and tips that ball, and the newsroom floor went crazy. As you know, Columbus is right there next to Phoenix City.
That was 1989. Yes,
exactly. And sometimes you have to remind people that we are in the state of Georgia, and they're like, "Well, I didn't know that." But I mean, it's Auburn and Alabama everywhere. Of course, Georgia too, and even Georgia Tech to some extent. But that was a hell of a series. And I remember in '82, Alabama beat Penn State 42-41 at Legion Field.
Yeah,
and
21.
It looked like Alabama was going to just run through, and Penn State ended up winning the national championship.
They sure did.
But
that was actually the week before what I would refer to as the collapse. Alabama beat Penn State. You mentioned it. It was in Legion Field. It was a really close game. It was 42-21, but it was really a close game. I mean, there were some things that happened late in that game that were really odd. But anyway, the next week, Alabama goes to Knoxville, and Tennessee snaps an 11-game winning streak. If you remember, Alabama had an 11-game winning streak against Tennessee, and they snapped that, and from there, the whole thing just collapsed. I mean, down the stretch, Alabama lost to LSU for the first time in like 11 years. They lost to the Auburn for the first time in 10 years. You know, it was I guess the only way you can phrase it for an Alabama person, it turned into a debacle there down the stretch.
Yeah, it did. And I think these games, you know, we were talking with Tyler McComas out in Oklahoma City, Norman, and covers Oklahoma, just how excited they are coming in to the league. You know, granted, they got a tough schedule in 24, but anything's tougher than what you face week in and week out in the Big 12. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And look, right now, you watch the national shows and you watch Feinbaum, whatever. There's the back and forth with Georgia and Alabama. People trying to say Nick Saban is afraid. No, he's not afraid of anything. Anything he says can and will be used against him, for him, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's like the Miranda rights. But that's what keeps this thing going, the constant debate year-round. Rodney, the state of college football. I know it's easy for a lot of people to try to give this negative diatribe of just, you know, gloom, despair, excessive misery. I, on the other hand, see through all that crap, and I'm as excited as I've ever been about the future of college football. This expansion in the SEC, the interest, these new schedules, it just gets better, and the fans want to be there. Contrary to that belief, they all want to sit on their ass in their man cave. No, I can just go down the hall and grab me a cold beer. Well, you know, a lot of those people now are going to the games and tailgating with no intention of going to the game. And, they got their man caves under these tailgate tents, and they drink all the cold ham beer they want, but they want to be there. What's happening now, these are like Grateful Dead or Panic shows. Everybody wants to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's
Get Rob some help.
There is some you know, Rob, I think there are some issues that are certainly the college athletics is facing. Obviously, the transfer portal, the NIL, all of these things that have to, you know, you have to get a grip on. There has to be some boundaries. There's no boundaries. And I think once they establish the boundaries and, you know, I think they reel some of this stuff in, it's kind of the wild, wild west out there right now. But I think for the long term future of college athletics and college football, since we're talking specifically, they have to you have to get some of this stuff reeled in and get some boundaries where everyone's playing on the same kind of within the same rules and all of those things. I think it's really important. I mean, one thing I don't like, Rob, I'll say this, is, you know, I mean, you sign a guy in recruiting this year, he may not even make it to the season. He may not even make it to the season jumping in that transfer portal. And I really don't think a guy can jump in the portal as many times as they want to. I mean, I know they say they limit it, but I don't think if they that anybody would challenge it if someone jumped in the portal, you know, 3 or 4 times. So it's they've got to get some grip on this and some rules. Everything has to have rules.
Yeah. Well, I've done some research on it, and it's not like I have. I just read it. You had 2 portal windows this past year, December 5th, January 18th, April 15th, April 30th. As an undergraduate, you get the first time immediate eligibility when you transfer. Then if you're a grad transfer, you're free to, you know, roam about and do whatever you want. Now, supposedly, let's see if the NCAA has a spine. I don't think they do in a lot of cases. But they come out, and in order to transfer, you got to, feel unsafe at your current school. And in the world we live in, someone can claim to be, a frog and identify as a frog or an armadillo and marry a python. I guess but seriously, you got to claim that you're scared at your current school, and B, you have serious mental health issues. And apparently you got to have several file boxes of documented proof with, doctors and whatever to prove you've got mental health issues, what have you. Now, mental health is serious stuff, but we can't let that get abused. But Rodney, I really believe this is what's going to happen. Sure, people can move and do whatever they want, but I think once you have a life cycle of people going into the portal like we have, and 45% of them are not getting picked up, it's starting to kind of trickle down. And as a recruit who committed the other day said, I'm ready. He goes, the portal's where you go when you're not ready. He goes, I'm ready for my next 3 or 4 years at Watsamata U with Rocky and Bullwinkle or whatever, Rodney, got to have rules, got to have structure, especially if you're ADD like I am. You forget what day it is sometimes. But I'm not real big on rules other than the golden rule, like it says in the good book. My dad always says, boy, life's pretty simple. Try to follow the golden rule and the 10 commandments and have a good glass of wine or scotch and water every night and just be nice to people. Treat them like you want to be treated. I do think that college football, it's the greatest game. There's no better game to attend in person than baseball, but there's no game that keeps fans' interest throughout the year like college football. And by the way, do you know Keith Donovan?
I've met Keith. Yes, I know who you're referring to.
Yeah, the national historian for ESPN college football. I tell you, that's a guy I'd like to get on here, you and me and some guys that you and I know, and have a roundtable about this. But I think that fans in the SEC and all of us, that the television aristocracy, Oklahoma coming into the league, Texas coming into the league. We think about Nebraska. Nebraska needs to get that brand back. But isn't it great to have high standards, that you want to beat these great programs? I mean, if you've got that, that means you're always working hard to be better. If you don't have any goals, Rodney, you got nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you cut out there for a minute, Rob. I'm sorry.
If you don't have goals, you don't have anything. And having the big programs, Oklahoma and Texas coming into the SEC, Nebraska. I mean, the Nebraska, they've sold out every single game since 1962. That's when Bob Devaney came there from, I think, the University of Wyoming. A little bit of trivia, home of the High Altitude Performance Center at 7,800 feet there in Laramie. But they've sold out every game since 1962. Do the math. That's a little over 60 years. And, they got to get the right coach out there. And maybe they got him now. I mean, we're going to see. But I think people love having teams to chase all the time. You got to have high standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think I think you're right, Rob. I think that, it's, I will tell you what, if you look at the SEC right now, that's pretty high standards in terms of the coaches, I mean, think about the coaches at every school. Think about Brian Kelly. Obviously, you got Saban, Kirby at Georgia. I mean, Hugh Freeze now at Auburn. You got Jimbo out there at Texas A&M. You've got Lane over at Ole Miss, Kelly down there at LSU. I mean, Napier's a young guy at Florida. We'll see. And then I think obviously Shane Beamer's done a really nice job at South Carolina. And, then you got Heupel at Tennessee. I mean, what a job he's done already. So, I mean, and I've probably left somebody out, but it's a man, this coaching, head coaches in the SEC, that's a really strong lineup.
Yeah. And somebody is going to get permission, or they're going to do it. They're going to hire Jeremy Pruitt. My wife is a huge fan of his. And I think he's one of the smartest defensive coaches I've ever seen. I still think the greatest defensive mind I've ever seen, multiple programs, the Showboats, brother Bill Oliver out of Demopolis or Lineville, Alabama.
Well,
Brother Bill,
I agree with you. I think Oliver was, one of the greats of all time. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he was. I kind of have said that I think Jeremy Pruitt is he's the modern day Bill Oliver, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
I think Pruitt's one of the best defensive coordinators. I think he's the best Alabama's had. It's under Saban. I know Kirby was good, but I think Pruitt was the best at making adjustments, makes adjustments on the fly. I mean, nobody really could do that like Jeremy Pruitt. And obviously, I will say this too. I can tell you right now, Alabama fans, most of the Alabama fans, and I've certainly, my observations are, I think Kevin Steele's a really, really big hire for Alabama. So, I really look for a lot of improvement in terms of consistency and fundamentals with Kevin Steele.
Yeah, he's an alpha male. He's a great recruiter. I know people at Auburn, he would come in and say, hey, you need me to go on the road with you and help you raise money for Tigers Unlimited, whatever. Awesome guy. Out of Gordo, Alabama. And not too far away from 20 minutes from campus. Hey, we have run out of time. First off, Rodney, before you tag out and let people know how to follow you, we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. Folks, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. I believe firmly in this country, the people, and American exceptionalism. I have no doubt this country will get through anything. The portal, NIL, and living brain donors in office. We can do anything, so we will do it. But we're here 6 days a week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. And Rodney and all of our guests, thanks for taking time to join us. Let them know how they can follow you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week in another great show tomorrow, starting off live from Omaha.
TigerInsider.com. It's only $48 a year if you're an Alabama fan, and you can get all our premium information. But it's all sports forum right now. The community of Alabama fans that we have right there, the exchange that we have, it really never ends on TigerInsider.com.
Well, that's the way we like it. It's just never a dull moment. Hey, Rodney, have a great day, great rest of your week. Everybody, go out and find something good and give it and help people out. We'll see you tomorrow.